Joy to the world, Joy Reid is gone. It is official as of this morning. MSNBC has not only canceled Reid Out, Joy Reid's show, but they've fired her from the network completely. She will no longer be appearing on any programming, either as a contributor or a commentator. According to the New York Times, Joy Reid's MSNBC show canceled in major shakeup. But that major shakeup isn't meant to bring MSNBC back to the center. No, they're not trying to get independent viewers or Republican viewers. Instead, they're doubling down on their leftist propaganda. Because replacing Joy Reid will be Symone Sanders Townsend, Michael Steele, and Alicia Menendez. So yeah, they're going really far left now. So this shakeup actually began about a week and a half ago. Again, according to the New York Times, Rashida Jones, MSNBC president, steps down. Now, part of the reason she stepped down is because Comcast is looking to spin off MSNBC alongside some of their other properties like CNBC. Well, they've already named a new interim president, Rebecca Cutler, and according to Axios, under her leadership, MSNBC will lean into its progressive roots in the Trump era. What's really interesting about this article is they're not even trying to pretend that MSNBC is an actual news outlet. They're pretty much flat out saying that it's left-wing propaganda, just left-wing talking points, progressive roots. You know, as if Joy Reid and Alex Wagner weren't progressive enough. Well, part of the reason they're doing this is because they're trying to recoup some of their ratings. MSNBC and CNN have both just plummeted. Their ratings are in the toilet. Let's take a look at the Reid Out right here. So Reid Out is right in the middle. Aaron Burnett on CNN in the right-hand column, and then the Ingram angle over on the left. So the blue number you see is the coveted demographic. These are viewers 18 to 55 years old, and advertisers pay the highest rates for that age group because they're working professionals. And you'll notice that while Reid Out was second place in overall viewership, far behind the Ingram angle, and just a little bit ahead of the Aaron Burnett program, she was dead last when it comes to that blue figure, that coveted demographic. So it's no wonder MSNBC decided to cancel her program. But sometimes it's more than just the numbers. You know, if the producers have faith in you, if executives have faith in you, they'll stick with you. But Joy Reid, you know, she's problematic both on air and off air. On air, she spewed racist tropes, and off air, well, she spewed racism as well. Here's just one of the many clips that Joy Reid proudly posted on her social media.
In America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general, because that's what Karens are, right? They Karen out, and then as soon as they get caught, it's like, green waterworks. White men can get away with that too. And it has the same effect. Even as the right tries to politicize the idea that masculinity is being robbed from American men by multiculturalism and wokeism, they still want to be able to have their tears.
I'm honestly surprised it took her this long to get fired. Just imagine if a white woman, or God forbid, a white man said something like that about black tears. Woo! They would have been canceled immediately. Look, it's no secret that race relations are more tense than they've been in recent years. I've said multiple times on the channel that I grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s, and I really don't remember race being that big of an issue back then. We just judged people based on the content of their character. Albeit, I grew up in a small town, so I don't know if it was like that here in the city. But I really believe that Democrats and the media and people like Joy Reid are directly to blame for the deterioration of race relations. So I found this interesting graph. This was put together by David Rosado, who is an associate professor and a research scientist, and he started tracking the frequency, the term frequency of the word racist, racists, and racism. And you'll notice that they really started skyrocketing as we approached 2020. And by the way, Joy Reid got her show on MSNBC in 2014, which coincidentally is when all of this talk about racism started really taking off. So it makes me wonder, did something happen culturally where people were committing acts of racism and were just more racist, causing the media to cover it more? Or was this coordinated propaganda from the left? Well, MSNBC isn't the only place experiencing radical shakeups. Obviously, Washington, D.C. has been experiencing huge earthquakes under the leadership of Donald Trump. Pete Hegseth appeared on Fox News Sunday with Shannon Bream, where she asked him to reply and respond to some of the Democrat criticisms.
branches. For people who may not know, I mean, they give advice to the military about what is lawful and what isn't. Not surprisingly, there's been some backlash to those who are worried about their removal. One Georgetown law professor says this: Trump also firing the Army, Navy, and Air Force JAGs. In some ways, that's even more chilling than firing the 4 stars. It's what you do when you're planning to break the law. You get rid of any lawyers who might try to slow you down. Your response to her?
I don't know who Rosa is and what her hyperbole is all about. Ultimately, we want lawyers who give sound constitutional advice and don't exist to attempt to be roadblocks to anything that happens in their spots. What we know about these TJAGs, they're called TJAGs inside the military. Traditionally, they've been elected by each other or chosen by each other, which is exactly how it works often with the chairman as well. Small group of insulated officers who perpetuate the status quo. Well, guess what? Status quo hasn't worked very well at the Pentagon. It's time for fresh blood. So we're going to open.
I love how he rationally explains all of that, just makes it easy to digest, especially for people who maybe don't follow politics closely. And it really is much needed. And it's so great to see compared to Trump 1.0, because in Trump 1.0, there was a lot of backstabbing. There was barely any cohesion when it came to messaging. And this time around, it seems like everyone is on the same page. Everyone is reading from the same sheet music. And no matter the ridiculous accusations that come from the left, obviously that accusation coming from Rosa or whatever her name was insinuating that Trump is preparing to proclaim himself a king and a dictator. And I thought Pete was brilliant and just totally downplaying that without being cruel, and then obviously providing a sound and reasonable defense. But there was one portion of the interview that is really throwing Democrats for a tizzy. They are outraged about this 16-second segment.
Zelensky should come to the table because this economic partnership is an important thing for the future of his country, and we hope that he will very soon.
But fair to say, Russia attacked unprovoked into Ukraine 3 years ago tomorrow.
Fair to say it's a very complicated situation.
Okay, we'll leave it there.
Yeah, so Democrats are claiming that Donald Trump is in Putin's back pocket, that Trump and Putin are allies, besties. I've even seen this claim within the last 72 hours that Trump is a Russian plant. Haven't heard that one before, but yeah, Democrats are just really desperate. So they're freaking out because he said it's a complicated situation, which it is. And this is what I cannot stand about modern politics today. So there's very little room for nuance. It's either black and white, you're with us, you're against us. There's no room for things are multifactorial. There are so many moving parts. And I don't think it's possible to completely lay this blame on Putin. And that's not me saying, oh, I side with Putin or I'm sympathetic towards him, because quite frankly, if I'm just being honest, giving my opinion, I hope he loses the war. I think he's terrible. And I think the Russian system is terrible. But at the same time, I also can admit that Joe Biden, the previous administration, did some things terribly that led to this war. If you think about it, Putin made moves under George W. Bush. He made moves under Barack Obama. He made moves under Biden. He didn't do anything when Trump was president. Makes you wonder, was Putin just trying to get on Trump's good side, or did Trump's foreign policy actually work? So I found this paper from John J. Mearsheimer. He is a professor at the University of Chicago. And if you look him up, I can't find anything regarding whether or not he's a Republican or a Democrat. In fact, all of his papers have attacked both sides of the aisle. It's not as if he's a partisan. And he made a really great point in this article. I'm going to read it because, again, I want to be very clear here. I will make 2 main arguments today. First, the United States is principally responsible for causing the Ukraine crisis. Here, he's talking more about the Biden administration than he is about the United States as a whole. This is not to deny that Putin started the war and that he is responsible for Russia's conduct on the battlefield. I agree with that 100%. Again, nuance. Nor is it to deny that America's allies bear some responsibility, but they largely follow Washington's lead on Ukraine. My key point, however, is that the United States has pushed forward policies toward Ukraine that Putin and his colleagues see as an existential threat to their country, a point they have made repeatedly for many years. Specifically, I am talking about America's obsession with bringing Ukraine into NATO and making it a Western bulwark on Russia's border. The Biden administration was unwilling to eliminate that threat through diplomacy and indeed recommitted itself to bringing Ukraine into NATO in 2021. Putin responded by invading Ukraine on February 24, 2022. Second, the Biden administration has reacted to the outbreak of the war by doubling down against Russia. The reality is that Joe Biden created an atmosphere that allowed Putin to invade Ukraine. Even NBC News reports how Biden's tunnel vision on oil and gas encouraged Putin's invasion of Ukraine. And by the way, let's not forget the joint drills that NATO held with Ukraine inside of Ukraine in 2021. So I can totally understand the argument that perhaps Putin saw that as escalation and aggression, or saw that as the West beating the war drum. And in fact, a senior Biden official admitted that the United States refused to address Ukraine and NATO before the Russian invasion. And you can Google this article if you want, because it's great. But this senior official basically said that the Biden administration never really worked for diplomacy or worked for an off-ramp. Basically, it was all escalation the entire time. What Democrats are trying to do is they're really doubling down on this narrative that they started in 2015 and 2016. Russia, Russia, Russia. Donald Trump is Putin's puppet. That's the narrative that they're trying to double down on, instead of acknowledging what Trump is really trying to do, which is bring peace, trying to bring a close to the war. Because if that doesn't happen, if an off-ramp isn't found, if you war game the scenario, if you try to look 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, the only way this ends is with escalation. And I don't mean escalation between Russia and Ukraine. I mean escalation as far as this growing into a broader conflict, eventually bringing in other countries, and maybe even NATO, maybe China, maybe Iran, maybe North Korea. Like, this thing could really escalate out of control. You want to take the off-ramp as soon as you can. That's what Trump is doing. But instead, the Democrats are trying to sabotage him with these outrageous claims that somehow Trump is sympathetic to Putin. I just don't see that. But of course, all of this is just my analysis and commentary. So if you think I'm wrong, hey, it's a free speech zone. I never approach my channel. I never approach my videos as me trying to preach or me trying to convince other people to take my point of view. The whole purpose of my channel is for me to share stories that I think are interesting, and then to, you know, add a twist to that, which is commentary and analysis. So if you think I'm wrong about any of that, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. You're not going to offend me. I love reading about different points of view, or even resources. Like I say, most of the news stories, many of the news stories, I should say, come from viewers. So feel free to let me know your thoughts down below. Speaking of viewers, one of you in a previous video, actually my last video, if I had to guess, you said you're from a foreign country, but the way the question was written, I believe you're based in Canada. And basically, the gist of the question, and I hope I'm not misrepresenting it, but this is what I got reading in between the lines. It sounded like you were asking me my thoughts on whether or not Canada should become the 51st state. My thought on that is no. I don't support it. And while I do support Trump generally, I've been very open on the channel. I am an independent. I am a free thinker. And the reason I'm an independent is because I don't want to be in lockstep with anyone. It's not just Donald Trump. I would say the same thing with any president. I think you really should do some evaluating if you find yourself agreeing 100% with every single thing a politician says. However, with all of that being said, I do think that most of the controversy around Canada becoming the 51st state is manufactured outrage. If I had to put a number on it, I would say that 60 to 65% of Trump's rhetoric is probably him just trolling. I get that some people don't like the trolling, but for every person who hates the trolling, Trump has as many hardcore supporters who just love the trolling. So I get why he does it. But Marco Rubio sat down with CBS's Catherine Hetheridge and gave some insights as to how this talk even started. And it's a lot different from how it's being portrayed in the mainstream media. Here's Marco Rubio.
President Trump has talked about expanding the U.S. footprint. In a hot mic moment, Canada's prime minister said that absorbing Canada is a real thing. Is it a real thing?
Look, you know how that came about? President's meeting with Trudeau, and Trudeau says, well, if you even out our trade relationship, then we will cease to exist as a country. At which point the president responded very logically, and that is, well, if you can't exist without cheating in trade, then you should become a state. That was his observation.
That's how it started.
It is how it started. And I think he's told the story publicly. And that's how all this began. Look, Canada's our friend. Canada's our neighbor. Canada's our partner. But it goes back to the point I made. For decades, the United States allowed uneven trade imbalances to develop. During the Cold War, you know why we did it? We did it because we felt like we want countries to be strong economically, even if it means they're cheating, because we don't want them to fall victim to some internal Marxist coup that overturns their government or what have you. Those days are gone. These are rich, developed economies. And ultimately, who can argue against the fact that whatever they charge us, we should charge them? Whatever they prohibit, if they don't allow American companies to do it, we should not allow their companies to do it here. American banks can't even operate in Canada. So there has to be reciprocity here. We can continue to work together on all kinds of things, but whether it's Canada, Mexico, China, anybody else, when it comes to economics and trade, there has to be reciprocity, there has to be fairness. And who would argue, how can anybody argue against that? The days where we just allow countries to take advantage of us, that has to end. That's not good for the global order. That leads to imbalances that create friction points. That's the case with Canada. It's the case with a lot of countries who are our allies and friends. But on trade, we have an imbalance and it has to be dealt with.
Two things. Yeah, I think that provides a lot of context as to how this whole situation started. And it really, I think it paints Trump in a more favorable light than the mainstream media is painting him right now. And number two, I never thought I would say this, but I am really impressed with Marco Rubio right now. He's always been well-spoken. He's always had a great grasp of the issues, but he just seems to be really coming into his own right now, really has a strong presence, strong command of the facts. And not only that, but he makes it really digestible and really accessible for everyday Americans. And I think that that's what we want from an administration that is trying to be transparent. He brought up a few good points there. It's not as if, from my point of view, as if the United States is trying to bully Canada specifically or to call them out. President Trump, according to White & Case, has expanded steel and aluminum tariffs to all countries effective March 12, 2025. So, again, that backs up Marco Rubio's point that these are going to be reciprocal tariffs in many cases, and then in some cases, there'll be blanket tariffs across the board. On the other hand, too, aside from reciprocity and aside from just fairness, it's also being used as a negotiation tactic. So when it comes to Canada specifically, one of the tools, one of the bargaining chips with Trudeau was, hey, you need to stop the flow of drugs into the border. And according to CTV News, new data, meanwhile, shows that fentanyl seizures are decreasing. According to the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, fentanyl seizures from Canada dropped 97% between December 2024 and January 2025. So that right there proves the power of using tariffs as a negotiating tool and a negotiating tactic. Again, if you want me to state it, I believe that sovereign countries are sovereign countries, whether that comes to Canada or Ukraine. And I, like I said, I hope it's clear. I am not on Putin's side. I hope Putin doesn't win, but I hope that there is an off-ramp. And when it comes to Canada, I really don't think the 51st state talk is real. However, if it is, I think it was, just as Marco Rubio said, an observation. And we'll see how things play out, because I don't think that Trump is trying to target Canada specifically. These, to me, to my eyes anyways, from the news I'm reading, it looks like these tariffs are going to be blanket tariffs or reciprocal across the board. So I don't think there's any bullying going on there. But again, as always, all of that is my analysis and commentary. That is what's going on in the world of politics from my point of view, and I would love to hear from you. So, touched on a lot of controversial topics today. Look, I know politics is controversial in general, but I haven't really talked about Ukraine a lot, and I haven't talked about the 51st state talk a lot. So it's always scary talking about these new topics because I don't know where everyone stands. So that leads to the question of the day. What do you think about Pete Hegseth's response? Do you agree with the outrage from the left that the Trump administration has been too soft on Putin, that they're not playing hardball with an authoritarian and a dictator, and that Trump is abandoning our allies in Europe? Or do you have my view on it, which is it's more nuanced and more of a gray zone than that? Or do you have another view completely? Let me know down in the comments below. Safe space here. You can say whatever you want. I love reading everyone's perspective and point of view. If you haven't already, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me reach more viewers like you in the algorithm. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.